But, chapter Lamed Tes, Pasuk Lamed Gimel, which comes out the beginning of today's portion in the Chumash RABBI. So hopefully some of you already seen some of what you learned the Chumash Ketters. However, this thing's working. Yeah, thanks. However, we see in this week's parsha a tremendous repetition in different oifanim and different stages of the whole commandment of the Mishkan and the whole making of the Kalim, and at the beginning of the parsha how much gold and silver and copper and the cheshires were used for each of the Kalim. And having completed the whole story of what was used and how it was used, we then come at RABBI that the Yidden, having completed the whole Mishkan, bring it to Moshe Rabbeinu. So it asks something interesting question: where was Moshe Rabbeinu at that moment? We'll maybe deal with that in a minute. But it's written at the beginning of this week's, at the beginning of this parsha of RABBI, Vayoviu es hamishkan el Moshe. All the Betzalel and all the Chachamim and all the Yidden that they'd worked on the whole Mishkan, including the Uriyas and the coverages at the top of the Mishkan, all the Klei HaMishkan, the whole thing, they bring it to Moshe. And then it goes on to reckon out again what they bought. And we already know what they bought, but it tells us they bought oil, it's called KLALI, and all the whole long list, everything that was in the Mishkan, they brought it to Moshe Rabbeinu. So what does it mean they brought it, to Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu, having heard from Hashem how all the Mishkan was supposed to be and all the Kalim, he knew exactly how everything was supposed to be. So he actually didn't do any of the malachas, as we pointed out last week, when it even came to the Oren, everything was all made by Betzalel. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't actually, but probably Moshe Rabbeinu had to stand around and he had to give instructions, he had to make it clear what needed to be done and what should be done, etc., etc., and how to do it. So if they finished all the malacha, then Moshe Rabbeinu would be around, What does it mean they brought it to Moshe Rabbeinu? They brought it in to him. So that asks itself the question. It's just it's almost like a klotz kasha. They had to go like a bit of a, obstinate sort of question that doesn't really lead anywhere. But it's just of interest. Yeah, where was Moshe Rabbeinu? B'oto harega. So it comes along, very remarkably, comes along the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel. I see everybody remained very calm. I mean, Yonasan ben Uziel is just up here.
Yeah.
And you've all been there, I think.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You went there one day on a tiyo.
We've hiked there, we've driven there, we've gone there a few times.
Didn't you, when you went to Yonasan ben Uziel?
Yes.
And Yonasan ben Uziel, he was a Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had many Talmidim. He was very, very great in his generation. He was like Moshe Rabbeinu, B'Torah, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. So the Gemara tells us in Masechta Sukkah that Yonasan ben Uziel was from the smaller Talmidim of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He was from the smaller Talmidim. And yet the Gemara says that he learned with such unbelievable fire that when he learned Torah, if a bird would fly over his head while he was learning, does anybody know what would happen to the bird?
It would catch fire, no?
Yeah, immediately it would be burnt, consumed by fire. So you know the famous quip. And that's what the Gemara said. And that's one of the smaller Talmidim of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. So we can imagine what the biggest Talmidim were like. So you know the famous quip that a bird flew over his head when he's learning and it got burnt. The bird was consumed by fire. So Mishnagid, Anon Chassid said that way. When he learns that portion, he says, does he have to pay for the bird, or is he, is he chayav nazikin, or what's his a bird got burnt? He was responsible. Is he potter, or is he chayav? Does he have to pay? Under what conditions? That's how the literature boy learns. This is just a mashal. When the chassid, a chassid learns that a bird before, he said, he goes out of his kelim, his pilots, he said even a bird got burnt, with the heat and the slavas of his learning. And so he takes a big learning from that he's also going to learn that way. So you have to be careful now in the base medrash around here. You guys are all going to be learning, giving out fire. Who knows what's going to happen here to the base of medrash? Folks came out to tell the birds to keep away.
But seriously, is he chayav for that bird? That is actually a good question.
Anyway,
that's a good question.
That's an old quip that's put down by the world. But again, to that story. But the story is a true story. It's written in the Gemara. It's like the Sukkah. So it comes along Rabbi Yonasan ben Uziel. He wrote a Targum, apart from Targum Onkelos. He wrote a Targum on the whole Torah in Aramaic, but he adds a little pirushim. He brings different makoyres that he had from the previous sages in his generation, which were very early. I mean, he was in the time of the Tanoim. And he brings also things which later we find in the Zohar Kodesh. And he had, of course, all the great sources were very open to him at that time. So he says, the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel, he says that all the people, Aisu Yashmishkan Lavas Moshe Lebeis Medrashay. They brought the Mishkan to Moshe in the Beis HaMedrash. Yeah. And he said, how did they fit it all in? Over here is Moshe Rabbeinu, and he's sitting in the Beis HaMedrash. Tahavu Tamon Yasvin Moshe v'Aaron u'Benoi. They were sitting there at that time, Moshe and Aaron and the sons of Aaron. Small fine. Once upon a time, if you came late for a shiur, they used to give a fine, and a fine meant, you had to learn a couple of prochim and Tanya Baal Peh, and a couple of Mishnayos, Baal Peh, and so on. But we'll be liberal.
Just charge your money.
So He says that he was sitting there together with the sons of Moshe, Vahavi Misrat, he was explaining to them, Seder Kuhunosa, the whole Seder of what it means to be a Kohen, the Kahuna, but Tamin Yasvin, and also they were sitting in the base of Medrash, together with Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron, his sons, Saveh Yisrael, the elders, you have to call the Zikna Yisrael, the Achviulei LaMoshe, and all the Yidden came in and they showed him the Mishkan and all of its kelim. So ask yourself the question: why would the Yonasan ben Uziel, why would he say that Moshe Rabbeinu was sitting in the base medrash, and he even mentions who he's sitting with? He's sitting with the sons of Aaron and his sons, and also the Ziknais, this sort of very important elder Chachomim. They're sitting in the base of medrash together with Moshe. And then all of a sudden, all the Yidden come in and they're carrying the Mishkan, the whole Mishkan. They put it down, and they want to know, what are we going to do? You know, we'll soon see in a second what is their problem. What sort of problem did they have? So, why do you think the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel goes out of his way to tell us a whole picture of that nature? So because it's just like this. Moshe Rabbeinu is Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu is first of all the honor of Mikol Odom Asher Pnei Adoma. He's the most humble and devoted person to Elokus that there is in the world. And Moshe Rabbeinu had the responsibility of building the whole Mishkan. He didn't do anything, it was also see, but he had to show everything. So all of a sudden they finished the whole Mishkan, and Moshe Rabbeinu's not here, you know. He's over who knows where. That's number one. Number two, L'chora, Moshe should have jumped up immediately and moved very swiftly to where the Mishkan was. He shouldn't have to wait that they bring the Mishkan to him. You know the story, but I'm not going to go into it. It's rather painful. But there's a story brought down in our sages about two great people that they both said, well, he's got to come to me. I don't have to go to him. He should really come to me. And the other one said exactly the same thing. He says, I don't have to go to him. He should come to me. So they never met. And because they didn't meet, something very tragic happened. I won't go into the whole thing. So here's Moshe Rabbeinu, and the Mishkan, the Mishkan's been finished and the Yidden have got it. He should have been very, particularly that Moshe was the most humble person under the sun. Moshe Rabbeinu should have run to see what's happening with the Mishkan. And what have we got to do now? If we finish the whole Mishkan, what's the next step? I mean, is the Mishkan, to use the expression, worth anything, to use such an expression, if it's all just pieces and kelim and, It is. So you'd say, well, for my museum I would become rich, I'd become richer. I don't need to have it standing, I'd have it in pieces. But that's what it was supposed to be. What's the next and obvious thing to do is to stand it, to pull it all up. So Moshe Rabbeinu should have been the first to move to where they were. And therefore the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel, he had that kasha. And therefore the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel answers a teretz. And he said Moshe Rabbeinu was in the Beis HaMikdash. And if he would have been learning for himself, and Moshe Rabbeinu would have immediately jumped up and run to where the Mishkan was, and he would have showed them how to stand it up, or done something about it at least. But Moshe Rabbeinu was sitting with Aaron and with Bono, and he was in the middle of a very important inyan for the Mishkan. Dahainu, to teach the Kohanim, what does it mean to be a Kohen? Do we have any Kohanim around here?
Avrambo, where are you?
What a lot of butler in the door is. Anyway, it's, he was teaching them the whole Seder of the Kahuna, and then Rashi, the Targum adds that all the Zikna Yisrael were all sitting there also. But that means all the representation of the Jewish people and their leaders were also there. So they also need to know about the Kuna, what's going to, how much we do and how much the Kohanim do, or the Levium do. They need to know also. So since Moshe Rabbeinu was in the midst of such a very Ika thing, he was accompanied by such Ika people, and therefore he didn't feel it. You just get up and run to the Mishkan. And therefore he stayed where he was. And that's why the Yidden brought him the Mishkan. So I thought the question, why did they have to bring the Mishkan to Moshe Rabbeinu? If you, let's say, all the people outside of Moshe Rabbeinu was what he called Petzalel and Oholiyahu, all the big the Chachmei Lev, and all the people, they all knew exactly what was going on with all the kedim, with the whole, all the curtains and the coverings and everything. They all made everything. But what's the problem? Just put the Mishkan up. And when, no doubt, when we're in the middle, Moshe Rabbeinu will come, or if not, we'll invite Moshe Rabbeinu, we'll show him, the Mishkan Kamashu. What's the big problem? So we're going to see that presents a very interesting field of discussion. What exactly was going on? So let's take a look in Rashi. And Rashi says, on Posek Lamed Gimel, Rashi brings a whole amazing sort of story plus situation. So Rashi says, Vayaviu es ha-mishkan. They brought the Mishkan, Sheloi hoyu yecholim lahakimoi. They couldn't put it up. They couldn't erect the Mishkan. A very strange business. Here you got all these amazing chachamim like B'Tzalel and all these people. And they made the whole Mishkan, but now they got a very troubling problem. They don't know how to put it. It doesn't go. They can't put it up. So I thought the shuttle, why can't they put it up? But let's go a little bit further and we'll see what. Ulafi, Shaloi also Moshe Shum Malocha Bamishkan. And since Moshe Rabbeinu himself didn't actually do any of the skilled work, he told people what to do. But he himself never did anything. So you might have thought, well, maybe Moshe Rabbeinu made the Oren. We learned about that last week, the B'Tzalel made the Oren. Yeah? So, Moshe Rabbeinu himself never actually did any Malocha in the Mishkan. He niach loy HaKadosh Baruch Hu hakol mosei. The Eibusher left for him the standing up of the Mishkan. The Eibusher saw that Moshe Rabbeinu really wanted to do something. He wanted to have some part in putting it up. So the Eibusher said, you know what? We'll leave it for him, the putting up of the Mishkan. Okay, that's very touching and very beautiful that Hashem did that. Sheloi hoya yochol lahakimoi shum odom. Because no man, like you said, in this world, no man could lift it. They couldn't put up the Mishkan. So Rashi said, why no, what's that? What's it a problem? Machamas koived hakroshim. How would you translate koived hakroshim?
Heavy. They were too heavy.
The heaviness of the
pillars.
Of the boards. You know, they had call them the boards of the walls of the Mishkan. Does anybody know what they were made of?
Wood.
I'd say shittim, cedar wood. And that's, according to Rashi, that's a heaven. The Daza Kenyam and the Bali Tees of it The Bali Tezers had learned way back in Pasha Truma, they learned that cedar wood was light. They learned that Hashem caused a certain forest of cedar trees to grow in the Midbar. Rashi told us that Yahweh Bina bought cedar trees from, we learn about that. Yeah, that he bought cedar trees from Mitzrayim. Which is also an absolute pellet. Yeah, when you think about it. But the Daza Kenyan from Bali Tezer, he learns that it was light. Well, Rashi learns that cedar wood is very heavy. And so how big are the krashim? The krashim are 10 amas high. Now 10 amas, they're pretty high.
Yeah.
10 amas is 10 amas is about 10 times the size of a Chabadske talis cotton. A Chabadske talis cotton is supposed to be an amma. It's supposed to be. Sometimes nowadays I make them a little bit smaller, you know. In Lubavitch, I heard from somebody who he knew what he was talking about. He said talis cotton in Lubavitch, from the neck down to the bottom, was no less than 52 centimeters. That was the minimum. It could be sometimes everybody can run around measuring their talis cotton. But it used to be more, usually.
What's the width?
The width's the same. Yeah. That's about an amma. It depends which amma, the different levels in ammas also. But 10 times that, that's quite tall. I mean, that's quite tall. A heavy wood. It's, so a keresh was also an amma in the thick. Yeah? It's a mela, and it was, how do you call it? An amma v'chetzi this way. Yeah? So you got 10 times an amma and a half this way and an amma that way, all solid cedar wood, and that's pretty heavy. So therefore, Rashi says that nobody, shum adam, no mensch, was able to lift up one of the crossing. He couldn't lift them up. Yeah, machmas koivet akroshim she'ein koya ba'odam lezokon. There's no power in a man to elevate them. Well, Moshe hemidoi, and Moshe did it. Moshe Rabbeinu,
Because Moshe Rabbeinu was 10
stood them up.
Moshe Rabbeinu was
So notice everybody takes that very cold-bloodedly. And I heard Moshe Rabbeinu stood away. He must be quite
strong.
Yes, how did that happen? So Hashem said to him, he said to Hashem, Oma Moshe lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He said, Eich efshar hakamosei adidei Adam. How is this possible? How is it going to happen through man? To lift up the koshim. O maloi asoik ator biyodecho. Just put your hand out as if you're doing something. Yeah? Nira k'mekimoi v'hu nizkov v'kam mi'elo. He appeared as if he was lifting it up, but really it came up and lifted up. Me'elo. What does me'elo mean?
By itself?
By its own self.
Yeah.
Very good. It lifted up by its own. So, v'zeu shenema. It's written later in Shishi, in the whole hymn over here. It's written on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Hukam HaMishkan. Hukam. Now the word hukam is a passive, past passive. Hukam, it stood up of itself. It was made to stand. So who really stood it up? Hashem. Hashem really stood up the Mishkan. Moshe Rabbeinu just had to put his hand on it. And once he did that, it all stood up on its own. Hukam HaMishkan, Hukam Me'elo. It just happened on its own. And then he says, Medrash Rebbe Tanchuma. Rashi brings down where he got it from, and Rashi himself says, it's not the people put in brackets that they reckon it was from Medrash Tanchuma, but Rashi himself says it was from Medrash Tanchuma.
Why?
Wasn't it, Levi?
Understand,
You
come
okay, boy?
Little tired.
You know, they say Rabitza the Masma. You heard about Rabitza the Masma?
Yeah.
He was a very amazing person. Very
He was
amazing.
baiting you, say.
Yeah, he was such a Masma. He used to learn Nigla at night time. Because by day he was davening most of the time or doing other things. he was busy. He used to collect Maimad for the Rebbe Sal. Anyway, he would learn Nigla at night time, and he also had a problem when it was, he would sort of. So they say he used to have a fork, standing like that. So if he fell down, the fork would give him a shock. So it's very.
Careful, baby.
Other people want to say that he had his feet in ice water.
Oh, I heard that too.
Yeah, that he had his feet in ice water. That kept him awake. I don't know if I've never tried that. I don't think I've ever tried with a fork either, but that's what they say.
We'll leave it
Yeah,
across.
about a bit of the money. So we also have a special little fork for Levi. Anyway,
Okay, Levi,
so
ready for the
this
fork?
is Medrash Rabbi Tanchuma.
Which one?
Medrash Rabbi Tanchuma. So what does Tanchuma mean? Does anybody know?
That's
Supports.
from Nach.
Comforting?
Yeah, comforting,
I
Nachum.
can't hear what he's saying. He's saying comforting?
Yeah,
Yeah,
He's
Nachum.
saying good. Yeah. Means, comforting. Tanchumin means like comforting.
Yeah.
Rebbe Tanchuma, he's a Rebbe of comforting. That's what we could suggest. Because not everywhere does Rashi say that he's taking it, or who is taking it from the club. And here he mentions Rebbe Tanchuma. So when you just hear that, I mean, isn't it a bit sort of funny? There's something a little bit sort of strange going on here. I mean, there's something pretty obvious that sort of jumps out, and asks itself a very severe question. What's the problem? So, Shum Odom is much more one man. I don't know, one man. The Kroshim are very heavy. One man. So Moshe Rabbeinu said that he can't do it. And Hashem said to him, just put your hand on it, it'll all just work wonderfully. So what was the whole problem? Bring a lot of people at one go, and put up some pulleys or other things, cranes or what they call manufim or something. In those days they had pulleys, ropes and all that. And stand up to Mishkan, several people together. Ain't nothing of it. Odom, Shum Odom, he can't do it. Other people could. So what's the big problem? Why did they say that they came to Moshe Rabbeinu and they said we can't put it up? What's the debate? What's the problem? That's number one. Number two, it's put down in the Gemara, and there's a Gemara in the sector Nedorim, and in the sector Bechayres, and in the sector Shabbos. Or in the sector Shabbos, it's like a bit of a question, and that presents a necessity to sort of find an allied svara between the different parts of the Gemara. Well, that's not our problem right now. I mean, it's a problem, but it's not our right now. That the Gemara says in the sector, what do you call him? Nedorim, the Gemara says that the Eibishter never allows the Shekhinah to rest on a man who doesn't have certain requirements. That's to say, a Novi, that the Shekhinah, mamish rests on him, he's got to have certain requirements. And he's got to be a chacham, he's got to be a gibur, he's got to be a osher. He's got a lot of monies. And then the Evish will rest upon him. So they say Moshe Rabbeinu had all of them. So the Gemara says, how do we know Moshe Rabbeinu was